Namaste, everybody. So today I thought I would share with you a little bit about what my guides and angels called my miraculous awakening experience, which is when they gave me the very extraordinary experience of an advanced level of divine intervention when they appeared to me, when they called upon me to work for them. I'd like to say I received that experience really graciously. No, I received it semi-graciously. I loved the divine miracle that it was, but it was also extremely nerve-wracking because I didn't know what it actually entailed until I worked through months of receiving communications from them. And finally, they told me that the reason I was seeing them and why they refused to step down away from me being able to see them was because they were calling upon me to serve them, and that it was finally time for me to fulfill this mission. It was a 2-month-long period where I was allowed to see them with my physical eyes. It was beyond mind-blowing, beyond extraordinary. I kept a lot of it to myself because it was so extraordinary. When it was over, I was given clear instructions to document and to draw what I witnessed and what I experienced. I obeyed, and I did. And today, I have the book that I put the pictures in. And if you'll notice, this little guy here is just the photo that the scrapbook came in. I wanted to keep this book confidential, so I never put in this frame anything that would draw anyone's attention to the scrapbook. It's been many years since my, what's also called an activation period. I've hung on to this, and there's another one over there, and they've encouraged me to open up about it and to share with you what I went through along with the pictures that I drew. As you can see, I typed up what they called my miraculous awakening experience. I'll read a little bit of it to you right now. This album documents some really cool, miraculous experiences that I've had with spirit guides and angels. Wow. The drawings are representations of apparitions that I have seen. I've done my best to recreate the figures and messages, drawing them in the most accurate and detailed way that I could. In early November of 2007, and I remember it was exactly 2 weeks to the day before my 36th birthday, I awoke at 2 a.m. to go to the bathroom. As I was just getting out of bed, I was shocked and nearly bowled over to see a humongous, completely cut out dark silhouette of a very large man on my bedroom door. It was not a ghost because of how the apparition came in a perfectly dark outlined silhouette. I was so stunned that I literally couldn't move. One leg was on the floor, the other leg was still on my bed. I was dumbfounded. I stared at it, not knowing what to do. But immediately I had the feeling of love start to flow into me. So I didn't panic, but I was still obviously anxious and confused. I stayed crouched like that for a long time because I was so in disbelief at the large figure that filled up my 2 double doors in my bedroom. After the initial shock wore off, I stood there in disbelief, staring at a very large male figure that filled up my 2 double doors. Immediately, he said, "Spirit guide," and he said it loud. And then I saw the word spirit guide spelled out in my head. I continued to stay in that position, afraid to move, but no longer really afraid of the entity that was in my bedroom, because he filled me with so much love right from the very beginning of my eyes meeting him. I muttered to myself, "Wow, a spirit guide?" Eventually, I was able to stand up and get myself fully out of bed. I walked past him, made it to my bathroom, did what I had to do. While I was in there, kept the door open, I continued to see he was still standing, watching over my bed. Again, these overwhelming feelings of peace and calm flooded me, so it made it bearable. I made my way back to my bed, and I continued to lay on my right side, staring at it as he watched over me the rest of the night. I lay there for hours. His silhouette disappeared when the sun rose. I started to see light cascade over his silhouette, and he was no longer there to my physical eyes. I thought that was weird. Not gonna tell anybody, don't understand it. The next night, the same thing happened. I turned my TV off to go to bed, and as I did, the moonlight went through the window and it cast on my double doors in my bedroom, and again, I saw the apparition of another spirit guide. This one was much smaller. The same thing happened the next night. The third night, though, I recognized the silhouette standing next to my bed, and it was my dad. I could see his outline perfect. And when I looked at him, immediately he said, "It's your father, Mo," in my head, and I heard him loud and clear. And like the 2 spirit guides before my dad is not a spirit guide, neither are your dads or your moms, but they can work like a helping guide, where they can come around us and guide us and help us and protect us. He continued to communicate to me that he was watching over me. And that was all he was allowed to say to me, or all I was allowed to be able to hear that night. In any event, he stayed there watching over me all night, like my spirit guides did before him. Here's the first spirit guide, the one from the very first night. He was huge. I finally got to see him in living color about maybe 4 or 5 months after my miraculous experience. I was allowed to see him in full color. He looks a lot like Shaq, the basketball player. Really big, really muscular. He came to me wearing a white silk shirt and pants with a beautiful purple sash all around him. He had the most beautiful smile. He was so happy. He was so loving. He woke me up in the middle of the night, and he was handing me and surrounding me in pink roses. I was allowed to know his name then. His name is Steven. He told me at this point in my ascension process that he was my primary guide. I was like, whoa. Here is another apparition, another picture of another spirit guide that followed Steven. And another one. And then there was this short woman. I labeled her short and small spirit guide. This spirit guide was very unusual. I should have said she. It was very small and stout. She was about 2 feet tall and a little wide in her structure. She was a female because she was wearing a dress and she had long hair. She didn't exactly look completely human given how short she was. She was wearing a cloak with a hood that was pulled up over her head. Although she was small, I could tell she was not a child. She was a highly evolved being that just had a smaller structure. And what looked like to me came from a different dimension, not the species of a human, but rather what my guides and angels will refer to as a galactical being. She was a galactical guide. Again, just like the other two guides, she filled me with love. When I would lay there watching them, they would fill me with the feeling of peace, serenity, and love. And it kept my anxiety down as soon as it became overwhelming for me. They also gave me visions of red hearts, pink hearts. They would hand me pink roses, red roses, the whole time they were sending me love. It was actually an extraordinary blissful experience to go through this 2-month experience with my guides and angels. As soon as I wanted to get out of bed, just out of nervousness, it'd be like this huge billowing blanket of energy just put me back in my bed, kept me still, and had me just focus on them, and had me focus on receiving the love that they were sending to me. Yes, I was beginning to worry if I was ever gonna have to talk about this. And I made the decision then that I wasn't going to. Obviously, things have changed. Following the short galactical woman guide was a very tall, powerful, beautiful female that came next. This spirit guide was definitely a woman, and soon to be a very powerful one by the level of love and energy that she was putting out towards me and her structure. She wore a long dress and her hair was pulled back. The next night, she appeared again, but this time her hair was black and it was down, not pulled back. Being in a state of still having a lot of amnesia, I did not recognize that this female was in fact Kuan Yin. It would be about 1.5 years, almost 2 years later, that I finally was allowed to know that I worked for Kuan Yin, one of the top ascended masters in our universe. And actually, what Jesus told me several years ago, not just in the top, she's second in charge. She's the second most powerful spiritual guide in the universe, second to Jesus himself. So that's why there's no name next to her other than woman. I didn't know who she was. I got to know their names over a period of about 1 year. I earned that privilege. I earned it by being devoted to whatever they were asking me to do, which was to stay strong, to not back away from them, and then to start meditating. When I started meditating, they would appear behind my chair, around my chair, and at any point within that year, all of a sudden, I would be allowed to know most all of their names. That was one of my missions. Although they also taught me that knowing their names isn't important for us here on Earth. They work like a collective group, and they taught me early on to teach people to look at your guides and angels as a collective group, and that you can just call upon your guides and angels as a collective group and trust that your prayers, your wishes, your wants are heard by your own personal collective group of guides and angels. But because I was allowed Stephen, I went, well, why stop there? I'm gonna keep going until I get all their names. And I was lucky enough, Kuan Yin just said privileged enough to be allowed to earn having been given their names that first year. When that happened, it helped me develop a stronger and closer connection with them when they would come and visit me and ask me to do certain things. Meditate. They taught me how to clear chakras. They told me when it was time to go in psychic development class so I could learn all about psychic abilities, chakras, how to open, how to close, how to protect myself, how to manage my channels much quicker and faster than it would take them to do on their own with me, given I was at that time a mom with 2 young kids. And then they would still train me in addition to that development class, and I obeyed. I obeyed just about everything they asked me to do, which earned me a lot more gifts from them. This was another spirit guide that appeared after the woman, Kuan Yin, He looked just like the Oscar statue that they give out at the Oscars. And that was the first thing I thought of. I went, oh, another galactical being. This was a really cool moment though. He stood at my door and I could see his hands were held in front of him down like this. And at this point, I had been communicating in my mind to them, asking them questions, asking them who they are, and they would answer me a lot of times by, again, sending me hearts, flowers, rainbows, love, serenity, peacefulness. My guides answering me were your guides, were your spirit guides. Then they would flood me with all the memories that I remembered of myself. And they would show me all of these years, all of these experiences that I would go into a channeling state with friends, family, strangers. And as a child, I had full clarity of it, full memory of it, because my amnesia wasn't completely set in until about teenage years. Teenage years, it was kind of like this knowing, but then I would kind of like, just to get along in the world, not really want to accept it, so I'd push it out. They kept me there for a really long time in that 2-month period. I now understand that process is that they were taking away the amnesia and helping me remember who I am. And then when they use the words, it's time for you to work for us. And that's why you're seeing us, because we're calling upon you. So eventually I had to get strong enough to accept this reality and that my life was going to change dramatically. This galactical guide announced himself as a galactical guide. He even said his name to me. It's so long and so unusual, I could never pronounce it. So he told me just to call him G, because his name begins with a hard G sound. When I was communicating to him, laying there in my mind, I would say, how come you all can hear me talk to you? It's like you can hear my thoughts in my head when I talk to all of you. And what he did was he moved from one door and he took his hands that were held like this, he put them behind his back, he moved to the other door and put his hands together. And I saw him and I went, oh my gosh, you just read my mind again. And then he said, mental telepathy. He said, we are highly connected to you through mental telepathy. And I laid there, I'm like, oh my gosh. And then he started to fill me with hearts and rainbows and love. And he said, because I'm part of their group, I've forgotten, but that I am connected to all of them at a very advanced level, and our degree of mental telepathy is, what he said, superior, because I'm part of their group. I went, oh my gosh, no wonder. I would lay there in bed and I would say something and they would answer me without there being any physical communications. So here's my attempt to show you how his hands were in front of him, and then he moved them to the door as his way to first begin to answer me by moving his body first, and then he answered. Doesn't end here. Remember, we've got 2 months to go through here. 2 months. I would say 6, if not 7 nights a week for 2 months, they appeared. And it would happen the moment I would turn the TV off and it would become dark enough and the moonlight would cast on that door, double doors, and they would appear. And then sunrise, the sun would go up. I know later that they did it that way to show me that they were there all of the time. And it was the transition of the sunlight filling up my room was the only reason why all of a sudden I couldn't see them anymore. And it was also time for me to get up, get my 2 kids off to school, and get on with my day. The communications, though, continued. 24 hours, 7 days a week, pretty much minute by minute. I started to ask them questions and I started receiving answers. Detailed answers. I have a lot of them written down in a notebook I gotta find. This one, I called him the bishop. It was a man sitting in a chair who looked just like a bishop, and I heard the word bishop, wearing a dress. What did I write about him? The spirit guide looked very much like a bishop. He had the stature of a regular-sized man. He wore a long dress and he had hair. The outline of his hair looked like a traditional man's hairstyle, not the like bowl cut like a monk, but he had that feeling and that vibe of like a monk's hair, the way his hair was cut. But I heard bishop. He appeared in silhouette several nights, either standing by my bed or he was sitting on my bed. That's why he was sitting down. I woke up and I saw him sitting right at my feet at the end of my bed. Yeah, I was pretty overwhelmed when they got that close. I'm like, whoa. It was really cool to see him sitting on my bed. His silhouette clearly showed him sitting on the side of my bed with his face turned towards me, watching over me, like they all were doing this entire experience. I could see him sitting there all night long watching over me, but I couldn't feel him on the bed or on my legs. It was really neat and weird and comforting all at the same time. Yeah, it was wild. So I opened my eyes to roll over and I saw this magnificently large male figure that looked like a monk and a bishop in a gown sitting right where my feet would be, but I didn't feel any weight on my feet. And I saw his face just looking at me lovingly, watching over me all night long and filling me with love. Finally, I was beginning to get used to this, but I was having so much trepidation about how to move forward. Being in a suburb in Minnesota where spirituality was not highly embraced, and how to function as a mom of 2 kids, and how is the people in my life going to accept this about me? Because at that point now, I had felt so much unbelievable love from my spirit guides that it's almost like they won me over. And they also helped remind me who I was, which was, in their words, part of their group, and I was not going to let them down. Towards the end of that 2-month experience, I was laying on my stomach and I was about to flip over to my other side. As I opened my eyes, I saw all this brilliant white light cascading over my nightstand and right up to my face and the whole upper part of my body. I was so overwhelmed. It was blinding white light, like you think would hurt your eyes, but it never hurt my eyes. As I'm dealing with being a little overwhelmed, I looked up and there is this huge angel standing right by me, and one of her wings was lit up in white light. And that white light from her angel wing was what was cascading all down my nightstand and onto me. I remember thinking, oh, well, y'all had me at Spirit Guide a couple weeks ago. I was willing to go your way. But now you just kind of threw in a humongous angel. That's like the home run. Okay, I'm sold. I won't let go of this as easily as my human fears kind of wanted to make me. I labeled her angel. She was unbelievably beautiful. I laid there and I just thought, is anybody even gonna believe me if I tell them this? It is so extraordinary. It doesn't matter if they do or if they don't. It's an experience that I'm not gonna deny. My guides and angels, whenever they want me to share it, to enlighten other people about the presence that guides and angels are real. They do exist. We all have them. And I honor their wish to document mine in this book. Hey everybody. So this YouTube video went quite a bit longer than what I had planned. So I'm going to stop it here and call this part 1. Part 2 will be coming up in the very near future. So if you want to hear more about what heaven called my miraculous awakening experience where my guides and angels came to me, activated me to a high level, and called upon me to serve them, then stay tuned. Part 2 will be coming soon. Namaste.